5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff. Battery, 가자,
Vehicles PT downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the KPLO payload to a ballistic lunar transfer orbit. So we are beginning to throttle down the engines on the first stage to prepare for a period known as max Q. During this period, the vehicle is going to experience the highest amount of aerodynamic stresses
Vehicle supersonic. Max Q.
And there was max Q. So the engines are coming back up to full power. We have 3 events coming up in quick succession in about a minute. First up is MECO, that stands for main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then SES1, which stands for second engine start 1. Main engine cutoff is where the first and second stages, main engine cutoff is where the 9 engines on the first stage will shut off in preparation for stage separation. That is where the first and second stages will separate from one another. The first stage will make its way back to our drone ship to attempt its 6th landing, and the second stage will continue with SES1, which is where the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will start up and continue to propel our KPLO satellite to its desired orbit. Those events are coming up in about 10 seconds. For now, we are enjoying some excellent views of Falcon 9 during its ascent phase.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
We saw the confirmation of stage separation and the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Coming up in a few seconds, we're going to be looking for fairing deploy. Those fairing halves will separate from the top of the second stage and make their way back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And off they come. So those 2 fairing halves are now falling back to Earth. Those are the 4th flight for both of these fairing halves, and we are going to be attempting to retrieve them with the help of our recovery vessel, Bob. So we're coming up on T plus 4 minutes into the mission. We have a couple of views on screen. On the left-hand side is a view of that first stage, continuing to make its way back to Earth. And on the right-hand side is a view of the Merlin vacuum engine. On the opposite side of that engine is the second stage and the KPLO payload. So things continuing to go smoothly after liftoff. The next major milestone for the first stage occurs around the T plus 6 minute and 50 second mark. It's going to be the first of 2 burns.
On nominal trajectory.
The first burn is going to be called the entry burn. This is where we will relight the center engine, engine number 9, followed by engines number 1 and 5. That way we'll have 3 M1D engines helping to slow down the first stage as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. The engine that you see on the right-hand side of the screen is optimized to perform in the vacuum of space. It can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust, as opposed to the engines on the first stage, which are optimized to perform at sea level. Those can produce 190,000 pounds of thrust apiece. This view that you see on the left-hand side of the screen, that's actually inside the inner stage looking up. We mentioned those pusher rods, and that we saw a glimpse of those with that video. You can also see some action on the left-hand side of the screen. We see some bursts of white gas. That is nitrogen from our attitude control system. That in conjunction with those hypersonic griffins that you see on screen. We see two of them. There's actually four at the top of the first stage. Those help to guide and steer and orient the first stage back to its targeted landing zone. Today it's going to be the drone ship Just Read the Instruction. So we are about 40 seconds away, or 30 seconds away from that entry burn on the first stage. Second stage continues to perform nominally.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And those engines have indeed relit. The first stage is currently slowing down before hitting the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. This burn is expected to last for about 30 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Awesome. So that burn is in the books. We have one more to go on the first stage. That's a landing burn that's going to happen
Startup terminal guidance.
in about a minute. We are going to be listening here in about 20 seconds for a call out called SECO, that stands for Second Engine Cutoff 1. The engine that you see on screen will shut off its engine.
Has safed.
And then shortly after that, we'll listen for a call out for a nominal orbital insertion. That means that the second stage is entering its coast phase and is exactly where we want it to be before it relights its engine a little bit later on in the mission.
MVAC shut down.
So we did see that the MVAC
Stage 1 transonic.
shut down.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there was the call out for nominal orbital insertion. The second stage is coasting for a bit longer, and we got views back of our first stage as it attempts its sixth landing on our
Stage
drone
1
ship.
landing burn.
You can start to see the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Sometimes the video cuts out. We'll wait for confirmation of whether or not the first stage was able to land. But for now, we know that the second stage is in its coasting orbit. And there is that second stage with the Merlin vacuum engine off. And that's a view of the KPLO payload.